I want to talk to you guys now about type 2 diabetes. Before we get into it, I want to preface it because all too often, especially in the world that we live in now, especially that of which is under pharmaceutical control, we hear things like, well, that's genetic and that's hereditary and you're destined to have it. Well, I have some statistics that will flat out debunk that when it comes to type 2 diabetes. What do I mean? In 1980, and forgive me, I want to make sure I quote these correct. In 1980, so merely 40 years ago, there was 0 cases of type 2 diabetes in children in the United States. In fact, diabetes in children was so rare in 1980, it was actually called juvenile onset diabetes. So in 1980, we had 0 children with type 2 diabetes. How could it be genetic and hereditary if merely 40 years ago there was no such thing as type 2 diabetes in children? But by 2010, now this is an old statistic, this is a statistic that I have just on my phone from a documentary called Fed Up. But in 2010, there was 57,638 reported cases of type 2 diabetes in children. So how did we go from 0 to almost 60,000 reported cases in a matter of 30 years? There was a very critical thing that happened in the early 1980s, and that was that the sugar industry was such a powerful, dominant force that they bought the rights of the food pyramid and they bought the rights of many scientific studies and data, and they got scientists to back the idea that fat was bad, that fat was killing everybody, that fat was the cause of heart disease. And when they took fats out of foods, foods all lost flavor, and in turn they put sugar into everything. And then sugar from a business standpoint is the most addictive substance on the planet. So all these companies and corporations figured, well, we can make our products super addictive and make sure our profitability continues to increase. Type 2 diabetes is not something that you are genetically predisposed to. It is not something that your hereditary has anything to do with it. It is 100%, without a doubt, man-made disease. Your lifestyle and your continual exposure to sugar and carbohydrates exacerbating your sugar levels or your glucose levels north of 100 will inevitably put your pancreas into a position where it becomes exhausted. And if the pancreas no longer is in a position to produce insulin like it's supposed to, guess what happens? You become a type 2 diabetic. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you cannot reverse type 2 diabetes. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you are destined to be on metformin or insulin the rest of your life, because that is a flat out lie. If you take control of your diet, if you reduce your carbohydrate and sugar intake, if you feed your pancreas conducive to what it needs to produce pancreatic enzymes as well as insulin, you can in fact turn around type 2 diabetes. We do not treat or diagnose that in my office, but I can tell you tons of patients have come into my office with type 2 diabetes as a concern. We've gotten their diet on track, we've gotten their lifestyle on track, and they've come back and said that their A1C count came back at 5.5 or below, their glucose levels during fasting were below 100, and guess what that means? You're no longer a type 2 diabetic. Again, don't let anybody ever tell you that type 2 diabetes is genetic or hereditary. It did not exist in children in 1980, and yet today we have some of the most obese children in the entire world. We lead the world in childhood disease, childhood mortality, and childhood obesity. Why? The food system is to blame for that. So if you can get into the hands of somebody like myself or other people that can free you from the systemic web that is dietary control, you can change type 2 diabetes.